Oh, here goes. And welcome to the 69th episode of Throwback Hoops. Woody V's in the house. Please follow the show on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. We appreciate everyone's ongoing support. And as always, I'm joined by my main man, Robbie Clayton. What's good, Robbie?
What's up, Woods? Good to be back. I know we're having a number of technical difficulties tonight, so hopefully this will come through okay. But I'm looking forward to do the show, mate.
Yeah, great. And sorry about my sound. It might be a little bit iffy today with the mic not working, but I'm here, and I think you're hearing me all right, Robbie?
Hearing you fine, mate. Just don't start talking about Sydney Kings, and I might suddenly not be able to pick it up.
Awesome. We're good to go. All right, talk to me, man. What jerseys you got for us today?
Nice. I thought I'd go a little bit old school and do a double Lindsey Hunter double today. So I've got a bit of a story to tell about that. So hanging is his yellow number 11 Lakers jersey. So I'll go back to that in a second. I'll just stand up and show you the one that I'm rocking today as well.
My main man Robbie's wearing the classic Pistons Lindsey Hunter number 1 jersey. And 2 stints at the Pistons, right, Robbie?
Exactly right, yeah. So he was one of those random, one of my favourite players in the 90s. There's a bit of a strange one there, hence me sort of having 2 Lindsey Hunter jerseys were a bit strange. So I'll start off with that yellow Lakers one there, Wood. So I did a bit of investigation into that, right? And apparently he never wore number 11 with the Lakers. He wore number 10 with them. So tried to look into that. A bit of a mystery. He played in 2002. They had another guy that season that played 6 games for the Lakers named Joe Crispin that wore number 11. So I can't say I ever remember that guy. Very strange. I can't quite work out what the go is with that, but it's definitely a Lindsey Hunter jersey. So I have a feeling he might have maybe gone there and chose that number, and then something else came up and he dropped down to number 10. You think about his number 1 here, so it's a bit of a combination of the numbers. So if any of our viewers have got any gossip on what the deal with that jersey is, then let me know. But all right, well, a little bit about Mr. Hunter there, Woods. He played 17 seasons in the NBA after getting drafted by Detroit at pick 10 in the 93 draft out of Jackson State. Pretty random college there. Not a lot of NBA talent have come through there. Of course, Woods, this was the Chris Webber, Penny Hardaway draft that we've featured quite a few players over the episodes we've had. And of course, the Pistons have back-to-back picks that draft, so they selected Allen Houston at pick 11. So pretty handy couple of picks there. So as you mentioned, he played with 2 stints with the Pistons, also played with the Bucks, Lakers, Raptors, and Bulls where he ended his career. Accolades were an NBA All-Rookie team in 94, and of course he was a 2-time NBA champ in 2002, 2004. Post-career, he had a number of coaching roles, including an interim head coach role with the Suns in 2013, which didn't go that great. He was replaced by Jeff Hornacek, I believe. Most recently, a head coach role with Mississippi Valley State until stepping down last year. So I always like looking on Basketball Reference, Woods, and seeing all those trades and everything else like that. So I thought I'd read out one that he was involved in 2004, right? So listen to some of the names here, and it involved our Hawks with a couple of moves here. So as part of a 3-team trade, he was traded by Detroit along with Chucky Atkins, a 2004 first-round pick, to the Celtics, which became Tony Allen. In that trade, the Hawks traded Rasheed Wallace to the Pistons. So as we remember, he was basically there for 5 minutes.
1 game, right?
That's right. Boston traded Chris Mills to Atlanta, and then Boston traded Mike James to Detroit, and basically Zeljko Rebraka and Bob Sura, and a 2004 draft pick to the Hawks. And that 2004 draft pick became on to be Josh Smith, which I thought was pretty cool. So some interesting trade there involving Sheed, Lindsey Hunter, Josh Smith, so a few of our favourites there. So yeah, a little bit on Lindsey Hunter there, Woods. As I said, if anyone listening or watching knows what the deal is with this number 11 and why it's not number 10, then let us know. But no bobblehead for Hunter. I would have probably bought one over the years if I could find one, but couldn't find one. So yeah, I can see you rocking one of your favourites there as well, Woods. So why don't you tell us a bit about that? So Woods has, of course, got the jersey and hat combo there, and he's wearing one of his favourites in none other than Patrick Ewing. The nice number 33 for the Knicks there. Are you wearing big knee guards while you're doing this, Woods?
No, and I'm not sweating either, man.
You're not sweating either. All right, cool.
Yeah, but when you talk about some of the great centers of that time, I always put him up there as my favorite. Not necessarily was he the best. You put him alongside Mutombo, Olajuwon, Mourning, Robinson, those guys, right? Rick Smith, Brad Doty. There was a lot of centers around that time that dominated, and the big man was was very prevalent in the NBA at that point, right?
Yeah.
But I just enjoyed watching him play. Something about him at the Garden, Patrick Ewing. Funnily enough, as a Jamaican-born kid, he didn't actually come till I think he was about 12 or 13 by the time he moved to from Kingston, Jamaica. And yeah, he was playing soccer, he was playing cricket, all these other games before he came there, and yeah, eventually went on to have such a great career first at college and then in the NBA. Right, one of those great players that actually didn't win an NBA championship, Robbie.
I'll tell you what, Woods, I can't really picture him playing soccer, but imagine him running in as a fast bowler, right? I can picture that.
Yeah, for sure.
Running in, sweating with his knee guards on.
Yeah, yeah. The thing about him was he was a leader on the floor, and it's unfortunate that he didn't actually end up winning that championship. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jordan beat him in college and then beat him in the NBA as well, and always reminds him about that. Correct?
He's looking for work as well now, I believe, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Georgetown parted ways with him recently. I'm not sure whether he'll find his way back into, because I think he was an assistant, wasn't he, with maybe a team or two before he took that Georgetown role. So I wonder if he'll find his way back into the NBA, or whether he decides that college role is the right one for him.
Yeah, maybe college. He did give the NBA a shot, with Washington Wizards, Houston Rockets, Orlando Magic, and the Charlotte Bobcats as the coach.
Yeah.
Let me just quickly go through his accolades. Unbelievable. 11-time NBA All-Star, All-NBA first team once in 1990. Obviously, with all those great centers, it was tough in that generation, right, to make that center spot. 6-time All-NBA second team, 3-time NBA All-Defensive second team, NBA Rookie of the Year in 86, All-Rookie team in 86. He made the 50th and 75th anniversary team. He's 33, is retired by the New York Knicks. In terms of college, NCAA champion 84, NCAA Final Four most outstanding player in 84, National College Player of the Year in 85, third-time consensus first-team All-American 83 to 85. Man, I could keep going. There's a lot more if you go back to high school. So he had a very, very storied career.
It's a solid resume you just read out for sure, isn't it?
That big shot, right, that Jordan took to put him on the map.
Yeah. No, exactly right.
That was against him. And you'll see in the last dance, Ewing's, I think, injured in one of the games, and Jordan comes into the locker room. He's, oh yeah, man, we beat your ass in college, and we beat your ass in the NBA. And Ewing's angry. He's like, don't start with me again, Michael. It was a really funny scene that I kept rewinding and watching back.
Hey, we've mentioned it as well, how weird it was seeing him in those Seattle and Orlando jerseys, like towards the end of his career. It just didn't seem right. The same as we've mentioned with Olajuwon and that Raptors jersey, but Seattle jersey, Patrick Ewing, it just doesn't feel right, does it?
Yeah, in NBA Street Volume 1. The very first NBA Street game, you got to play with Ewing in Seattle. His sweat rolled down because he's at the end of his career, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into it, shall we, Robbie?
Sounds good, mate. Let's do it.
All right, let's start off by talking about the NBA playoff picture and a few storylines, right? The Mavs and OKC are in a fight to make that play-in spot, and they both keep losing, right? I think it's not a good look for the Mavs after all those trades they made to bring Kyrie Irving over, that they're struggling so much. Which team do you think is going to win out there? And I mean, is winning out actually making the play-in, or is it actually dropping out?
It's interesting, isn't it? So we should mention at the time of recording, it was an off day in the NBA today, so it's Tuesday the 4th, so it was the NCAA final. Congratulations to Connecticut there. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Look, I've got the standings in front of me. Dallas is still just the one game behind OKC. So I still have a feeling that Dallas might still make it. I figure they might get a couple of wins together, but not sure of exactly what their intentions are, whether they want to potentially not make it and keep their draft pick. I know there's a few stories going around about that. But, look, they've really struggled of late, haven't they? Look like when Kyrie first went there, they were sort of clicking okay now. Some strange things that are going on there. I mean, some of Jason Kidd's substitutions in that game against our Hawks yesterday were just bizarre. I mean, he basically ran with the same 5 that were on the court from about halfway through the third quarter until the overtime, and basically didn't make any changes at all. So it's a little bit strange. I don't know whether you can blame it on Kyrie. I think that would be the easy one, wouldn't it, to say, oh, Kyrie's gone there and he's brought it down. He seems to be balling out to me. I don't think he's doing a whole lot wrong. Luka's, he's still playing really well. I mean, obviously he's had some big games lately. Probably not having that influence that he did early on in the season. Potentially could be a bit of fatigue and everything. But I don't think that roster's constructed entirely well. The big man departments are pretty weak there. In terms of, OKC, you mentioned sort of in the running for maybe that other spot there. It looks like, Minnesota's a win in front of them. So, look, OKC is just balling right now, aren't they? All the young guys are stepping up. Seems like it's one of those ones where probably management and ownership don't want them to win, but, try going and tell a bunch of 20-something or early 20-somethings there not to win. They just want to go out and do their best every night. So, probably I'd like to see OKC make it, but I think probably Dallas will still make it would be my answer.
Yeah, well, you look at Jazz; they're 36 and 42, right? They've got 4 games in hand compared to Mavs and Thunder that have got 3 games in hand. So it's not inconceivable that the Jazz also make it, right? So they're still not out of it yet. So it's a little bit of a touchy ball for that last spot.
And it's going to come down to lots of those tiebreakers as well, which are really complicated. We won't go into it here, but division sort of winners and other sort of things like that come into play. But I reckon you could probably rule Utah out. I know they, obviously mathematically still could and having games in hand, but I'm not sure if they will, to be honest. But it's going to certainly be interesting. And I think people can probably say this play-in thing has been a success now. It's certainly kept it interesting until the last week in both conferences. There's been a few teams eliminated from each conference, but not a whole lot. So it's probably I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think LeBron's changed his tune completely about the play-in as well, right? Initially he was against it, now he's all for it. So I think people have bought into it. So let's move on a little bit and talk about the Pelicans. I want to just speak about them a little bit. New Orleans has had an incredibly strange season. They looked awesome to start their year with Zion Williamson balling Robbie, and then team building off the last year's strong finish. And Williamson got injured, Brandon Ingram got injured. They both missed significant time. The team never really quite back on track. Back in January 13, New Orleans was 26 and 17. All right, this is that. Then the Pelicans lost 10 games in a row. A couple of weeks ago, they dropped to a season worst 4 games under 500 after a loss to the Rockets out of all people. But since then, New Orleans has won quite a few games. I think 6 out of the last 7. I think maybe I got that slightly wrong, but something like that. And they're now, if you look at them in the West now, they're 40 and 38, and they find themselves just 3 games out of the 4th seed in a crazy Western Conference. So, what have you thought about New Orleans' performance this year? And if they can get everyone fit and healthy come the playoffs, could they make a difference? Could they make some noise?
Well, it's definitely been an up and down year. Like going back to what you said, they're 7 and 3 in their last 10, so they're certainly finding form at the right time. Started off so well, then went really down. Look, obviously the big one's the Zion news there. Apparently he's practicing at the moment. It feels like they're really keeping that under wraps at the moment there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are potentially saving him for a little bit of a playoff run. I don't know. You never sort of know with Zion. Is he going to get injured, walking up the stairs tomorrow or something else like that? I'm not sure. But in terms of how they could go, look, I definitely think all those teams probably that are in contention that we're talking about in the West could win a series on their own merits. This Pelicans team definitely does have some good players there. We could quite easily see someone like Brandon Ingram taking over a playoff series and sort of putting the team on his back there. But like we said, 7 and 3 in their last 10. Exactly. Right. And the Lakers are the same as well. And so basically, them and Memphis are really sort of the hot teams in the West at the moment. So peaking at the right time there. I think none of these Western Conference playoff matchups are confirmed yet with only a few games left, which is really interesting too. So we could see a lot of these standings sort of changing around. I know there's a lot of games tomorrow, so a lot of crucial games that could see these standings going up and down. But yeah, probably I'd say they'd be a tough out, the Pelicans. But yeah, they're a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see how the West plays out. There's still a lot to play for from everyone, from the Suns in 4th place all the way down to the Jazz in 12th place, as we just discussed. So let's move over to the East for a little bit here. And I want to talk a little bit about the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, they started off the season with their stars, traded them away. Ben Simmons hasn't been playing. This team actually reminds me a lot of that Denver team from, say, 10 years ago with Andre Miller, Marcus Camby, with no real out-and-out superstar, where a sum of the parts just made the team really good. And they're sitting at 43 and 35 now in 6th place, ahead of the Heat at 41 and 37. They might find themselves qualifying outright for the playoffs this year. That's a really nice story, what's going on there. And Coach Jacques Vaughn's done a pretty good job. Apart from not playing Patty Mills, I'm pretty happy with the job he's done, right? So,
apart from not playing Patty and perhaps that beard that he's got, but we'll let him off on that one. But yeah, they are playing well, aren't they? I mean, look, they haven't been amazing, and they're 4 and 6 in their last 10, but I think they've probably they can't probably drop below 6 there. So they seem to be one of the teams that's maybe potentially got a spot locked up. But I've actually watched a bit of them lately, Woods. I watched that whole game against the Hawks on the weekend, and geez, they're really impressive, aren't they? Miles Bridges, I mean, my goodness. I mean, that guy was named the player of the week pick in the East last week, and he is just killing it at the moment. I don't think I knew that he had that many offensive skills, to be honest.
No.
I thought he had a few sort of skills there, and obviously was a great defender and obviously a good teammate, but in terms of what he's sort of giving at both ends is really impressive. I read that basically for the month of March, Woods, that Bridges have scored as many points in just the month of March than Ben Simmons had the whole time that he'd been at Brooklyn. So I thought that was a pretty interesting stat
Not
there.
surprised there. And Inspector Gadget, as they call him, right, with those long arms, his ability to finish in a variety of different ways. He obviously didn't get a chance to showcase that offensive talent fully in Phoenix with the pieces that were around him, right? It's been a real great opportunity for him, amongst others, to join that roster, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt that he's a great two-way player. And look, I'm really impressed with the way the Nets have reloaded this roster. Like you said, they recently had the big three. Obviously, they got rid of Harden last year, but making those moves there and getting a lot of younger guys in return for KD and Kyrie, but also getting a lot of defensive players and wings and all those positions that are sort of highly sought after in the NBA. So, yeah, as I said, pretty good watch there. I know maybe they're not on people's league pass radar just because they don't have that superstar name anymore, but check them out. They're going to be tough in the playoffs as well, where potentially we could see some of these ridiculously high-scoring games go down a little bit as well. And you've got guys like Finney Smith and Claxton and Bridges and those sort of guys that are good defensive players. So yeah, they've been a surprise to me.
Well, another surprise. Let's move back out west. You mentioned them earlier with the Lakers, and they've also made a lot of changes since the trade deadline that have benefited the team. And in LeBron's absence, they've really, really rode that wave. And what have you seen about the Lakers roster being retooled and the strides that they've made lately?
Well, firstly, they've got a huge game. I believe it's tomorrow they play the Clippers there. I mean, at the moment, they're 7th. They could potentially move up to 5th in the standings and, basically avoid that whole play-in thing altogether, which would be pretty remarkable. Look, one thing for me with the Lakers, I don't think they fear anyone in the West, do they? I think if you basically said, right, you're playing Sacramento, you're playing Denver, whoever you sort of choose that they might have to play in that first round, I don't think either of those teams would faze them there. I just sort of like they seem to be on the same page playing together and everything like that. They've obviously got some superstars and some bit sort of players. They seem to be combining well there. So, yeah, I mean, they're clicking at the right time. Anthony Davis has definitely looked good these last few weeks. He's having some big numbers, shooting really good percentages there. So, I mean, it's all a matter of him and LeBron staying healthy at this stage, isn't it, to see how far they could go. But, I mean, they're a scary matchup for anyone they play there. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they could, jump ahead of the Clippers and Golden State there. That'd be huge, right?
Yeah, what about a 5th versus 4th Suns versus Lakers first round matchup?
Yeah.
That'll be juicy, man, right?
And we should say as well, Woods, I think a lot of people maybe don't totally understand how this play-in thing works with it being such a new thing. But I think people assume that it's, 7 plays 10 and 8 plays 9. Well, it's not. So for people that don't know, 7 plays 8, with obviously 7 getting a home court game. The winner of that is in the playoffs, right? They're in.
They're the 7th seed.
That's it. The loser of that plays the winner of the 9-10 game. So based on the standings at the moment, you'd see the Lakers playing the Pelicans, winners in, and you'd see Minnesota playing OKC. The winner of that would play, the loser of that Lakers-Pelicans game. So I might have lost a few people there, but essentially, 7 versus 8, the winner goes through. 9 versus 10, losers out. Winner of that plays that loser of 7 versus 8. So it's very interesting to see. And I know we'll probably talk a little bit about the Hawks scenarios as well a little bit later in the show. But yeah, looking forward to it. And it's big. And obviously, even if the Lakers can't get a guaranteed spot in that top 6, you just want to make sure you stay in that 7 or 8 range. And then potentially you've just got to win, especially if you can finish 7th, right? You just got to win 1 home game and you're in. So, yeah, be interesting to see what they do.
Definitely. Well, you just mentioned the Hawks. So let's move on to the Hawks. It's kind of incredible the stats that they've been putting up over the last little bit in terms of we're winning 1, we're losing 1, pretty much points for and against are even. A whole heap of other stats are almost even. This is incredible, right?
Hey, what would you say the Hawks are in their last 10 games, Woods? It's a
5-5.
Oh, correct. It's it's unbelievable, isn't it? Honestly, I kind of feel like they could, they could beat any team in the NBA, and then the next day they could lose to our Thursday night team, and then it's vice versa. If they win one, you almost should just put money on the next game that they're going to lose. So the bad thing about that is they won their last game against Dallas. I believe we've got Chicago tomorrow, so of course they're going to lose that because they can't win 2 in a row. So it's frustrating, isn't it? I mean, I think I sent you a message in the first half of that game against Dallas yesterday, and I forget what I said. I said, these Hawks are really pissing me off or something like that, right? Yeah. We ended up coming back and winning that game. I don't know what it is, to be honest. I just can't seem to work it out. I know you're going to ask me about Quinn Snyder and everything else like that, excuse me, but Yeah. Well, let's maybe talk about the Quinn Snyder thing there, Wood. So,
Let's do that. So the Quinn Snyder effect. Obviously, he's had this team for a little while now. We said in the early stages of his acquisition that it's going to take a training camp, a year for him to, bring in some of his staff and, acquire some of the players and
yeah.
pieces that he wants. Um, what have you seen so far in terms of the effect he's had on the group?
Well,
And
firstly, I think
yeah,
it's very unusual for a coach to come in this late in the season for a team that's still in contention for the playoffs there. So coming in there and not having his assistants, having Joe Prunty, who just sort of coached the team
yeah,
and looked pretty good in that position there. So you're right. I think he's probably just trying to put his stamp on things. Clearly, there'll be some moves in the off-season. He'll be bringing in, new assistant coaches. He'll be really having a good look at these guys on this team now to see what potential moves could be made. I think we've said all season, Woods, we like this roster, right? I think they're reasonably deep. Really, really impressed with the play of Onyeka Okongwu this year. He's just been really good there. So I think it's almost at the stage now where you could potentially make a move on Clint Capella, get Okongwu a lot more minutes and potentially get someone a little bit cheaper for his backup there. But I think the Trey and DeJounte thing probably... I think it's okay. Look, I wouldn't say it's a disaster. I wouldn't say it's amazing. Maybe they wanted sort of the combo to be a bit better, and obviously DeJounte being the defender and Trey being the offensive guy there.
yeah,
For all that the haters of Trey, he's going to lead the league in assists for the second season in a row, which is pretty remarkable and something that all the haters won't mention there. So I think that's a pretty fair effort for someone that people apparently thinks a bit of a hog in that. So 2 straight years he's going to lead the league in total assists. And look, everyone's still talking about the Kevin Huerter thing. We've kind of got to get over that now, to be honest. Yeah, he's played really well for Sacramento, but at the end of the day, we got a draft pick back. We had to give a few away to get DeJounte Murray. We gave, DeAndre Hunter the money, and that was probably part of the reason why we got rid of Red Velvet there. I like the development of guys like Jalen Johnson and AJ Griffin. I think there's a pretty decent future for the two of them. And also, I think Sadiq Bey was a pretty good move at that trade deadline as well. So we've seen him, look pretty handy in those fourth quarters at both ends. So, again, going back to that play in format there, Woods, if the Hawks finish, 7th or 8th, which fingers crossed for us we do, because it seems like we've been in front of Toronto and Chicago for ages, but we're just in front. But again, if we finish 7th or 8th, they have to win one home game to make the playoffs. So, even if they lose to Miami, if they play them, and that's what it kind of looks like at the moment, one home game they're in. So, yeah, look, it would be a disaster for them, I think, if they didn't make it. But we saw last year the Hawks were in the play-in, and I think they beat Charlotte, and then they beat Cleveland, and ended up making the playoffs. So we could see a similar run to that. But what's your take on the whole Snyder thing? Are you sort of in agreement with that? It's you probably
yeah. I think also with Snyder, it took him a few years to build that Utah team to where it eventually became, and a big part of what he did was having that big man Rudy Gobert in the middle, and he surrounded him with shooters everywhere, right?
yeah.
And that blueprint can sort of be followed at Atlanta with either Okongwu or Capella, and getting some pieces around. I mean, they've already got some. They got Bogdanovich, they got Hunter, Griffin. It's just about having a training camp with these guys, getting his principles and his sets in place, and making a few tweaks that he might want to that roster, and giving him an opportunity to build around it. But he's got the blueprint for success previously in Utah, and he's got some of the pieces that he can mirror that process with. Right.
One thing I'll say, Woods, I don't really like some of these matchups that we could potentially have in the play in there. We know Miami's pretty much dominated us this year. Toronto and Chicago probably aren't the greatest matchups. You'd certainly prefer to play Chicago over Toronto, I think, if you're the Hawks. But yeah, I mean, none of them are great matchups. I'd almost prefer them to play Cleveland, the Knicks, or Brooklyn, who are the 3 teams that are going to be already in the playoffs before the play-in starts. But
yeah, I mean, you hope that we can come 7th or 8th, right? So even if we lose that first game, as you spoke about earlier, we can have another crack, and hopefully the Bulls can maybe beat the Raptors, right? And, the Bulls are playing pretty well recently. It's not inconceivable they beat the Raptors, and then we play them for a spot for the 8th seed. That's
it. Well, Toronto and the Bulls Woods are both 7-3 in their last 10, so they're both really finding form. Look, either way, both conferences are going to be really exciting, and this last 4 or 5 games that each team's got, it's going to be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to sort of follow how it all goes.
And honestly, with East being so strong, we make it. We don't. Doesn't really matter to me now. It's going to be a first round exit more than likely, right? So.
Possibly, yeah. I'm probably a bit more optimistic. I think if we could get in there, I mean, yeah, look, we would be playing the likes of, Milwaukee or Boston or Philly or something like that. So it's probably not looking great there. But yeah, you never know. Anything's sort of possible in these sort of games. I'd really want us to at least make it and get something out of this season.
Yeah, and really exciting, NBL's finished. And so we can focus on the NBA playoffs. It's a great time of the year. But the NBL
It hasn't finished.
You still got a lot of news happening, man. It's
Yep.
very busy, right? We spoke to Jack last week, and a lot going on in your neck of the woods, Perth. So instead of me even asking you, why don't you speak a little bit about the big acquisitions and the smaller ones and the moves that the Wildcats have been making over the last week?
Hey, before I get into that, I might tell that little story about the April Fool's message that I sent you on
Oh
Saturday
yeah, go
morning.
for it,
So
go for it.
I woke up Saturday and I said to my daughter, I'm going to send Woods a little bit of an April Fool's message because I knew you would have no idea what the date was and you'd probably fall for it. So I
Yeah,
sent Woody a message basically saying, the Sydney Kings just signed Luke Travis and Nick Kay, right? So I sent that message, had a bit of a chuckle to myself. I didn't know Woods would be having a sleep in that day, so I didn't get a reply. About an hour later, it pops up on my phone that the Wildcats had signed Keanu Pinder. And I'm like, here we go. April Fools. I'm not falling for this. And I kind of thought, oh, geez, wouldn't that be great if we did sign him? And then I saw Olgan tweet it on Twitter. And then I saw Keanu retweet it. And then I saw the Wildcats put it on their site. And I'm like, hang on a minute. This isn't an April Fool's thing. So, yeah, look, absolutely stoked. I mean, like you said, we spoke with Jack last week, Woods, and I don't think any of us had any clue at all that, he would be going to his hometown team and playing for the Wildcats. And probably an extra special one for me, Woods. Obviously, growing up a massive Wildcats fan in the 80s, attending all those games, meeting Tiny Pinder, Keanu's father, and, getting that photo, which is somewhere in the room behind me. You can see that photo on my Twitter page.
yeah,
And exactly what they need, right? I mean, I think we called it. He was probably the biggest free agent signing that was out there. So to get someone like him on a couple of years contract in that position there, which is probably the hardest position to fill, absolutely stoked. So really, really pleased with that. So was a little bit annoyed with the Bryce Cotton news this week with the visa stuff. I know that's just a joke, but we won't go into that. It's a waste of my voice talking about that. But and then obviously the Wildcats backed up signing David Okwara. So I know your thoughts on that, Woods. You said you weren't massively blown away by that. I think there's a lot of potential in that signing. That's where I kind of see that, right, with his
probably a
age.
slight upgrade on Majuk, if you like. I
Well,
don't I
he's
don't
at
know.
least 12 years younger, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it is. I like Majuk, and I think he does offers a few different things. I don't know, man. Like I'm not huge on David Okwara. Let's see.
For me, though, bro, he's a 20-year-old that's basically a local boy
Yeah,
there. So we've got two local guys back. He's still got a lot of potential. He can hit the outside shot.
yeah.
He's a huge guy there, Aquera. So yeah, I think there's not a lot of risk there. I think it's 2 years in a team option that he signed there. I've got to say though, it feels like there hasn't been that many moves. Like we heard that
Nah,
news
not at
on
all.
Saturday. Tuesday now hasn't been a lot of other moves filtering through. Just a few rumours and that, but
Has Corey Webster re-upped? I think there's
he
talk that he
has.
has.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe he has. Yeah. So not sure what's happening with Ty Webster. He's rumoured to be going to maybe Brisbane, Adelaide, or Perth. So interesting to see whether he potentially stays with his brother or chases the money there. But look, it's certainly been a really good first week of free agency for the Wildcats. Signing up the big Aussie guy there and probably the cream of the crop there. Maybe we bring someone like Brady Manick back now. I think he could probably be a good matchup alongside Keanu there. And then not sure what they do with the other import positions. It's quite an exciting prospect now, isn't it? It
Let's
sounds
talk
like
about
Mitch.
who's left. Let's talk about
Yeah,
who's left.
yeah.
Okay. I know there's been some great signings with Keanu Pinder and as you said, David Okwara, Corey Webster re-upping, but Luke Travis, announced that he's leaving. Right. He wants to have a more prominent role where he can showcase his abilities, and he's got a fair point playing alongside Bryce Cotton and now also Keanu Pinder. He wants to be able to do that. What are your thoughts on that?
Disappointed would be the word I'd use. We talk about local talent. He's someone that we basically nurtured from when he was a teenager. He's still so young now. I feel like we put a lot of time into him.
Right.
When I sort of heard the news, I thought, what if he goes to the G League or if he decides to go to Europe? I'm totally fine with that. I'll be behind him all the way. But, today I'm sort of hearing rumours that he might be looking at United or the Phoenix now, and that does disappoint me. I don't know why he thinks the scenarios or the situations might be different with those teams. You called it last week. You said probably the teams that you think would maybe suit him the best would be, some of those, lesser market teams, for want of a better word,
Smaller
like
markets,
Cairns or
Illawarra,
Illawarra, one of
Yep.
those teams like that. So to hear that he's going after one of these Melbourne teams, I'm not sure that's going to be a whole lot different there. Whether he
No.
thinks he's going to be able to run the offense and have the ball in his hand 35 minutes a game. So interesting. I wonder if there was potentially a little bit of a clash with John Riley there, whether the two of them didn't get along or really didn't see the future what other people were seeing there. But yeah, and it's interesting. Nothing's come out yet as well. So whether he's potentially looking for the G League, I'm not sure what their situation is in terms of signing players, but. Yeah, a bit disappointing, but obviously the news with getting Pinder's probably made up for that, I'd say.
Definitely. And Mitch Norton attracting interest around the league. You see that?
Yeah, he'd be one that I'd probably be sorry to see go. But look, again, if he can get a spot in someone's 6 or 7 man rotation, you want the guy to go and do it and get a game there, because we saw he wasn't even making our probably 9 or 10 rotation last season there. I like what he can still offer us there. I mean, he's the sort of person, if Cotton was to ever go down or they needed that defender to come in, like we saw in that last quarter against Southeast Phoenix, he had some sort of decent times at the end there. So, yeah, I'd be disappointed to see him go. I'm sort of Blanchfield can leave with my blessings. I'm not sort of too concerned. And the same with Majuk. He wasn't really doing much last year. But I'd like to see if they could somehow keep Nordo. But I wish him all the best if he can find a better role somewhere.
Well, when you mentioned Blanchfield, he's got 2 years left on that contract. So there's financial implications for whoever wants to pick him up. And there's a buyout and things like that. So I think he might be best off just staying.
Potentially, yeah.
That could happen, right? So let's see how that plays out. In other news, the Brisbane Bullets, they've been pretty busy. I know they re-signed DJ Mitchell a while back, but this week they've got Sam McDaniel and Isaac White, right? I don't know if that makes...
No, I like those signings, though, to be honest. Isaac White, we've seen, he's going great at the NBL1 and everything. I think probably a few teams are chasing him from what I hear. And Sam McDaniel, we probably didn't see him live up to his full potential in Tassie, did we? So perhaps getting that other go there, it might be a decent situation for him. I know you spoke about, not sure if it was on the show last week or offline, but you probably thought their needs would be to get an import point guard to play alongside Sobey, let Sobey play the 2 there. So, and I know your boy Derek Rucker was talking this week, wasn't he, just saying that they should really go after someone like Rajon Tucker there. He's probably someone that a few teams are going after. Like, you know what I mean? He sort of seems to fill that wing role pretty good. I think a few people were a bit sceptical on him early on in the season, but by the end of the year, he was just filling it up, wasn't he? So I'm not sure whether United are in the box seat to get him back there, or what the actual story is with his contract. But he would look good in a Brisbane uniform for sure.
Yeah, the thing is, with the budget already spending money on the likes of Sobey and Baines, right?
Definitely.
You fork out money on a Tucker. Doesn't leave you a lot to get a quality import point guard, right? So
big time.
That's the one thing that I would say, that they could not keep repeating the same mistake by putting that ball in the hands of, say, a Sobey, or Isaac White would even have to be an Australian starting point guard or play a lot of minutes at the point guard position.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's something that you want. You want the Brisbane Bullets to make that change, I think, to help a guy like Baines as well, a proper point guard that he can play alongside and make a difference, right?
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah. And in other news, the Hawks actually probably secured one of the biggest coups of the NBL Free Agency. Adelaide-born Lachlan Aldrich, NBL1 Central All-Star 5 honors before heading to the University of California, Riverside to play in the NCAA. What do you know about Lachlan Aldrich?
Yeah, I think he actually played in a trial game for that NCAA team against Illawarra and had a really good game against them. And I think he's kind of been on the radar since that time. But yeah, I kind of like what they're doing. They feel like they're making a couple of sneaky moves in the background there, Illawarra. I know we've kind of got that extra soft spot for them now with our relationship with Coach Jacob Jackomas there, and we really want them to go well next year. So fingers crossed they get rid of the injury bug. But I think that's a pretty good signing.
Yeah, awesome. So, he basically joins Sam Froling, Wani Swakala-Bullock, Dan Grida, Will Hickey, and obviously the import pair of Justin Robinson and Tyler Harvey. So you think about Luke Travis on that roster. Deng Deng was starting at the 4, playing a lot of minutes, right? You could fit him in at the 4th spot. Obviously, he can play a bit of 3 as well. I think that's actually a pretty good fit for Luke Travis once you look at it.
I think like that mullet would probably look good in him, Wollongong sort of location as well. So, yeah, maybe. And
any other rumors you're hearing? I know Bull Call's signature is basically being chased by the whole league, man. But yeah,
I wanted to comment on Bull Call actually, Woods. I know you're a bit of a fan of him, and look, we keep hearing a lot of teams are after him. We know that 3-and-D game is highly coveted these days. I'm going to be honest, I thought he was a bit disappointing last season. He probably didn't have that step up that I thought he did. If you look at his stats, they were basically identical to the season before. So for someone that had that, Summer League, I'm not sure if it was Summer League or he actually had a tryout with one of the teams over there, the Bulls, I think, maybe from memory. I maybe expected him to take a little bit more of a jump last year. But in saying that, every team needs that sort of player there. But you wonder what sort of contract he's going to be getting and if he is going to be worth that big money that I think some teams might be looking at.
and he'd get into foul trouble a lot last season.
He did.
Always
Yeah.
making dumb fouls, so he couldn't
Yep.
play the minutes that he played in that first year. Almost Adam Ford gave him the license to do that, right? But even that, then you could see some. What are you doing, Bull? You know what I mean? Getting his fourth in the second quarter, many times he would get and be
Hey,
benched for the game.
what about your boy BMW Woods? He's a guy we haven't sort of touched on today there. I mean,
Yep.
there's some slight rumours there that the Wildcats could be trying to make a big three. I'm not quite sure how true those rumours are. We know he's a Brisbane born and bred sort of guy, isn't he? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm
Even
still,
nothing's
as I
happening.
said last week on the show with Jack, I think he's going to stay with New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
One more year, right? Sometimes it's about, Liam was saying it as well, sometimes it's about what's the best financial decision, sometimes about what's the best personal decision for my development, right? I
Yeah.
think he can develop a little bit more there and take his game to an even higher level than he already did this year, right? He's got a coach that he likes, good support there. And as I said, he's even mentioned in the past, he likes being away from family and friends so he can just get into his bubble and
Well, New
focus.
Zealand seem to attract a lot of scouts, don't they? You look at it, they had RJ Hampton, they had Usman Dieng. We're going to see Rupert getting drafted pretty high this year. So he's obviously not going to get drafted now, but he's still a chance to maybe get some sort of contract over there. So perhaps New Zealand is the best spot for him. But yeah, I expect he'll probably be that big next name that maybe comes out there. In terms of rumours and stuff, Woods, we're still hearing about some of these guys playing in Japan, whether it's your boy Joe Lualachu or guys I mentioned before like Nick Kay, who I'd love to come back to the Wildcats. I think with a lot of those guys, it's all contract dependent. I think honestly, if they probably would be preferring to play in the NBL at this stage of their careers, but
Yeah.
you play these, this basketball caper until in your early 30s if you can stay healthy. So of course you're gonna, if you can play in Japan and get triple the money that you could get playing here, well, it's probably a no-brainer, isn't it? You can set up your family for life. But it'd be interesting to see if any of those guys end up coming back at all.
Well, I mean, now that you mention it, I thought Keanu would go overseas. So your Wildcats must have really opened up the checkbook there for him.
Yeah, I think so.
God no, but he wouldn't have come cheap, right?
No.
And Leangelo Ball, rumors of him heading to New Zealand from LeVar Ball, but you can never take
I
LeVar
was
Ball.
about to say, I think those rumours are coming from the ball camp there, so not sure about that. Are we even sure he's an NBL quality import? Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that, but yeah, we'll never know. He'd probably sell a few tickets, I guess.
Awesome, awesome. So while we were talking about NBL, let's go to NBL1. I know it's just kicked off the first few games. You've been watching intently. Sorry, I haven't been able to get to a game yet. I will get to the next one home game for Hills. Talk to the audience a little bit about what's going on in NBL1
Yeah,
and
for sure. So, look, what I want to do is I'll probably talk about some of the different conferences, each week from
yep,
time to time and everything like that. So, given that the conference, the NBL1 East that I cover there has been going for a lot longer now. I think we're up to round 4 now. So, some of the other conferences only started last week. So, yeah, look, I've done 2 home games this year. So, I called the Hills playing Sydney Comets there. So, shout out to Sydney Comets. They had Vanessa Panousis, who was the women's player of the week that week and just absolutely lit it up.
yep,
And then I covered the Newcastle game this week, and that was really good as well. So I mentioned to you Nicole Munger. She was just unbelievable to watch there. So she'd be maybe 5'10", 5'11", not tall at all. She grabbed 23 rebounds in that game.
yeah,
And the thing about these rebounds, I was watching it, she has the best read of a missed shot that I've seen in any of these women's or men's games. So me and the other commentator were kind of laughing because we'd watch her, you'd see someone else put up a shot, she would know where that shot, if it was going to miss, would go to and get in the right position and get an offensive rebound. She must have had 8 or 9 offensive rebounds. So you can certainly see why she's playing in the WNBL. And she was the captain of the Michigan Wolverines, women's college team there as a 4-year senior. So shout out to her. She was really impressive to call there. And the Newcastle men's team is very solid as well. So as we mentioned, there's a lot of NBL guys playing in this NBL 1 East now. So whether you've got guys like Will Davo Hickey, Tim Conrad, Lucas Walker playing for Illawarra. You've got Junior Madut playing for Norths.
yep.
You've got Archie Woodhill playing for the Sydney Comets there. So, look, it's been really good seeing some of these guys coming through, but the absolute standout team, Woods, is the centre of excellence. So
Yeah,
this is the
yeah.
team now with all the young kids. You're talking Jensen Bradke, son of a gun there. They're currently 6-0. So them and the Sydney Comets, who are 4-0. So 2 new teams to this competition, or to the NBL 1 East, are both undefeated there. So really impressive there. In the men's, some of the newer teams are struggling. So Penrith and Hornsby are all 0-4, and then Bankstown and our Hornets are 0-4 as well.
Yeah,
So the next game I'm covering is Penrith against Hills. It's a Friday night lights game in a few weeks. So if anyone in the area, get out and come and support
I'll
that.
be
So
there.
one team's going to get a win that game, which will be good. But
Yeah.
So yeah, the centre of excellence, really impressive team. And going over to the women's there's still 3 teams undefeated. So 2 of the teams I've seen as well, strangely enough. So Newcastle being led by Nicole Munger, Sydney Comets with Vanessa Panousis. Jada Crawshaw was another one that really impressed me in that game I covered. She's the young, I think she was a development player for the Flames in the last season there, but got some great size on her. Really gets up and down the court quickly, blocks shots. Worked really well with Panousis, I noticed as well, and Albury's the other team that's undefeated with a 4-0 record there. So absolutely loving having it backwards. Sunday I kicked back and watched friend of the show, Jacinta Govind, commentate the Central Coast against Penrith game just to scout the Penrith team a bit. And of course, Jacinta does a great job as she always does. And while we're talking about Jacinta Woods, I wanted to give her a little bit of a shout out as well. So for anyone...
Beat me to it.
Okay, well, I've got it on there. So I've actually got it in my queue at the moment. I was listening to it on the bus on the way home. So she started an unofficial NBL1 East podcast. So it's called East Got Game, which I think is a pretty cool name as well. So, her and Hamish, who's the commentator for Sutherland, basically host that each week. They had Nicole Munger as a guest last week, and really good. So anyone that sort of is interested in the NBL1, especially the NBL1 East, check that one out and support our girl, right?
Do you know what she said at the start of the most recent episode? Have you listened to the most recent episode?
Yep.
She said, "You ready to chop it up?"
Yeah, I did hear her say that, actually. Yeah, nice.
So shout out to you, Squid.
Yeah.
Shout out to you, Squinderella.
She's using your terms there, yeah.
And,
but I've got to say, Woods, it's great having it back.
Yeah,
really enjoy it. And one tip I want to give people, when you open the games up, by default, it mutes the games, right? I don't know why it does this. I've been asking a few people why it does it. So when you start playing a game, this is any of the conferences, you've got to hit the unmute button on your browser or your phone, tablet, whatever like that. So not sure why they do that, but anyway.
And is it true that I hear that you're going to be a guest on East Got Game pretty soon?
I am going to be a guest on East Got Game. So I think maybe in 2 weeks I'm going to go on there. So potentially after that round 5. So I know the NBL1 East is basically off completely over this Easter weekend, so they'll get a bit of a break. But most of the teams in that round 5, the week after Easter, play 2 games within 2 or 3 games. So I'm probably going to go on the Monday after that and chop it up with the guys on the show.
Nice, man. Looking forward to it. Do we have time for classic packs?
Yeah, we got time for classic
packs. Of course we got time for classic packs.
Especially because we're wearing such throwback jerseys today, right?
Has it come out all right? Like, has the quality been all right? Can you hear me all right? Yeah?
I think it's good. Well, if people have got any complaints, I can just direct them towards you. But no, I think it's all right, man.
All right. So I've got the 1989 hoops. Wow. We've never done this packet before, have we?
89? No, I don't think so. That's definitely going back a bit, right?
Yeah. I actually can't even remember what these look like.
At least the grey-coloured ones?
I've got the David Robinson rookie card in this one.
Oh, that one there, yeah.
Remember the white one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We were talking to Lee Ellis about this. One of the greatest shooters of all time. Supersonic star. Guard forward. Dale Ellis. And how cool are these cards?
Oh, I do remember those ones. Yeah, they're definitely going back a way, aren't they? Nice. Show me the back.
I remember the most expensive card I had was the David Robinson one of this, where he was, holding up his jersey.
And I remember that basically ended up not being worth anything. And there was lots of counterfeits of that card as well.
Counterfeits of it. Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. We're talking about has a son that he was an LA Laker, and his son is one of the Splash Brothers.
Michael Thompson.
Michael Thompson.
Oh, sick of that old school shooting style, right?
Yeah.
And have you ever seen Michael spelt that way before, Woods?
I have somewhere. I just can't remember where.
Interesting.
Yeah. Michael Mulder, right? The player played for Warriors and
as a going back a bit. So not Mulder off the X-Files is a different one.
Michael Mulder played as like on a G League contract with the Golden State Warriors a few years ago.
Fair enough.
Felt like that. Okay. Houston Rockets, 6th man, guard. Number
Johnson?
15. Yeah, Frank Johnson.
Wow. Jeez, that's going back a bit, isn't it?
Oh, this is a name that I haven't heard in a while. Big bruising forward from the Washington Bullets. Selected by Orlando Magic in the 1989 expansion. No, that can't be right. Oh, yeah, he was. He was selected in the expansion draft in 89 by the Orlando Magic, but before that he played at Washington and Philadelphia. Went to Alabama.
What number? Give me a
His
number.
number is 33, and
Terry
his surname
Catledge.
sounds like something you would put in a printer.
I'm liking it.
Terry Catledge.
Oh, I just said that, Terry
Did
Catledge.
you?
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed
It's
that,
that.
man.
We'll blame it on that sound difference.
Yeah,
Terry
yeah, yeah,
Catledge.
yeah,
Yeah, nice.
yeah. Okay, another Dale Ellis All Star in 1989 All Star card.
Wow, good pack for Dale Ellis. I remember those All Star ones. They were like
Yeah,
at this. Is that an earlier number, a card number? Because I think they
number
were in.
43. Yep.
Yeah, I think they sort of were before the team one started, possibly.
Okay, his namesake. This guy's namesake. I mentioned him on the show as an import for the Wildcats in that 91 final against the Eastside Spectres. Okay? I'm not talking about Pete. I'm talking about
Bobby
something
Hansen.
else. Bobby Hansen.
Nice. Wow, I was sort of picturing him in a Sacramento jersey, but yeah, with Utah.
Yeah.
They're liking those shorts as well. They're looking pretty good.
Oh, one of your favorite contracts of all time.
Oh God, it's not, is it?
Yeah,
Is it a number 32 for the Atlanta Hawks?
it is indeed John Concac.
Can you rip that up or not?
No, I can't. I can't.
I don't even want to see
There's a
that
rule,
card.
man. We can't. Okay,
There should be a rule. If you get a John Concat going forward, that we have to rip it up.
this is a Detroit Pistons card of a great defender, a great rebounder. Before he went loony and dyed his hair and pierced all his face and
The
everything, I'm
worm.
talking about Dennis
Dennis the
Rodman.
Worm
And he was
Rodman.
almost a different person. Let's have a look at that
What's
Dennis Rodman there, behind
Yeah, how
there,
different
right?
is he? Hey, what is he doing on the front of that card? Is he like on defense there? What's he actually
Yeah, it
doing
looks
there?
like he's on defense there.
It's a random picture, isn't it? Yeah, geez, he's up high, hasn't he?
Yeah. The Rifleman.
Oh, Chucky. Nice.
Chuck Person.
Nice. I'm liking some of the players in this pack.
Okay, your brother would love this guy. White center from the late 80s and early 90s. Had a bit of a mullet. Went to North Carolina. LA Clipper.
Number?
Number 24. The whitest guy of all time.
24. I can only picture Terry DeHare for Clippers with 24.
Joe Wolf.
Oh, Joe Wolf, of course, yeah. Jeez, he played with the Nuggets as well, didn't he? Yeah, Joe Wolf. Jeez.
The son of an absolute legend for the Denver Nuggets. Went to Syracuse. Center for the Denver Nuggets. Son of the great Dolph.
Oh, Danny Shows.
Dan Shays.
Nice. Yeah, he wasn't too bad a player. Look at those shorts. My goodness.
Oh, that's bad. Okay, solid NBA player, and then ended up doing a pretty good job with OKC, then Washington.
Scotty Brooks.
Scott Brooks.
Nice. Wow. I seem to remember. I remember collecting one of these sets back in the day. And Scott Brooks was like the last card that I needed. I don't know if it was these ones or another brand there, but it was so hard to find it back in the day. And getting a Scott Brooks to complete a set.
Rest in peace, Phoenix Suns forward. Used to be Mon, but changed his name to Men. Who am I talking about?
Phoenix Suns forward. Oh, Wayman Tisdale?
He used to be Armen,
Oh,
and then changed to Armen.
Armin Gilliam, yeah.
Armin Gilliam. And just to make sure that I haven't made a mistake and said rest in peace.
Jeez, it
Yes,
never
he
worked.
died age 47 in 2011, unfortunately.
Jeez, 47 was he?
Yep.
It's a short life, isn't it? Yeah, no, he was definitely a solid player. Loving those old Phoenix jerseys too on that one.
Yep. Played most of his career with Milwaukee as a microwave off the bench, started sometimes. We've got his card quite a lot. His son also played
Paul
for the
Pressey.
Celtics a little bit. Yep.
Paul Pressey, nice. Yeah, I didn't mind Pressey back in the day. It's not a
And
bad pack.
finally, Miami, yeah?
Not a bad pack.
Finally, Miami Heat forward. Actually averaged 10.8 points and 8 rebounds in the 88-89 season. He was part of that first expansion team at the forward position for the Heat.
Number?
Number 55. All right.
55. not Kevin Edwards, is it? I know we had him recently.
Billy Thompson.
Oh, well, I wouldn't have got that one. Yeah. So that was a solid pack, potentially apart from Billy Thompson and that awful John Concat card, Woods. That actually kind of ruined my night a little bit, even seeing
Chuck
that guy's
Burton,
face.
Dennis Rodman, a couple of Dale Ellises, Terry Catledge, Michael Thompson. Not bad at all.
So you're not going to rip up John Concat for me?
No, I'm not going to. You want me to?
Yeah, I'd love you to do that.
Yeah, but I don't like Ricky.
No, don't. Yeah, keep it.
These are so good, these
Because
89, 90.
then I'll probably be asking for you to rip up Danny Manning ones next time. I know you definitely wouldn't do that.
No, the rule. We got to stick to the rule. All right. Well, hopefully there weren't too many technical difficulties. I did really enjoy the show. Threw me off a little bit at the start, Robbie, but we held it together, didn't we?
Yeah, we did our best as always, mate, for sure.
Okay. That's great. So why don't you tell the audience about where we can be found, where we can be followed, all of that?
Absolutely. So look, on Twitter, we're at Throwback Hoops. You know where to find us by now. Woody will put out the jersey pictures every week, so we'll get these up there. Don't forget, I'm going to be putting that random number 11, Lindsey Hunter. If anyone knows a little bit more about that number, please holler. Instagram, we're throwback.hoops, and our email address is throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. About yourself, Woods?
Yep. As usual, Patreon. Please pledge your support to us if you like. You don't have to. If you do, we thank you very much. That's pretty much it from me. I guess we'll be back next week after. I hope everyone has a good Easter long weekend and enjoy some time off, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Wish everyone a good break in that. Look, hopefully we're hoping to have a WNBL star player on within the next couple of weeks, Woods. Just confirming a few details there, but look, we've certainly got a lot to talk about with these NBA playoffs about to start. Of course, absolutely. The play-in. Look, people yell out as well, holler out and tell us, which NBL1 conference you want me to talk about, and I'll make sure I, look into that, watch a few of the games, and talk about your local conference there. And hopefully the NBL Free Agency news keeps coming in as well.
Thanks, everyone. Peace out from me and Robbie.
Peace.